Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 171 of the Falcoholic Live. Sorry. I was getting a little bit of reverb there, but I'm not anymore. So whatever the problem is, it appears to have sorted itself. I do apologize for the technical issues we've had this week as I'm running the show from a new location and a new computer. So it's been exciting. So appreciate everyone's patience this week. But all that notwithstanding, let's welcome into the show our great co-host this evening. First of all, Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, how are you doing tonight? Yeah. 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 I mean, hold on. We're having more difficulties here. I can never figure out what the problem is. Apparently. Let me make sure it's fixed. Yeah. I hear you guys. Let me do some triage here on whatever the problem is. You never know. Like you run the test stream, but until you get like everyone in here, you just never really. Yeah, everyone's so polite, They're just like, "Oh yeah, no." It's yeah, just go to the tweet and you should be able to follow the link. Don't understand why their audio is not working. Just don't understand. But yeah.
Hello?
There now it's working. I don't yeah, so it decided, the streaming program decided. Yeah, go ahead and talk again for me, Adnan.
Can you guys hear me? Testing
Yeah,
one,
yeah, it's
two,
fine now. It decided it was making my audio device like some random string of letters and numbers. So you know, I don't know how we found that one. I don't know how that became a thing, but you know, that's fine. We're just gonna roll with it, just like the Falcons. Sometimes we go 500. Sometimes we're a little below 500. Sometimes we bat above our weight class. But on that note, before we cut off another intro, um, we have with us Will McFadden at Will McFadden on the Twitters. Will, how you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing well, man. I copy everything that Adnan said. Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope everybody had a happy holidays, stayed safe. While we were going through all of that, did you guys see the pick six that Clemson had in this bowl game tonight? Because it's wild. It gave me a chance to see that on Twitter. And it's like a batted pass. Somebody like heel kicks it. I think a defensive lineman unknowingly like heel kicks it right into a corner's hands, takes it all the way for a touchdown. So I appreciate the technical difficulties tonight, Kevin, because you let me see a great play, and I encourage everybody to go check it out. So I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yes, especially now. Yeah. Yeah, now that we've seen, I got it. That just gave me an excuse to go to Twitter and watch that play. So yes, that was a great play. So definitely, big ups there for pointing that out so I could get a chance to see it, because that's definitely going to be on SportsCenter. But yeah, guys, well, we have, a Falcons win to talk about, and that's, exciting because there have been a pretty good amount of those this year, but there's only a couple games left. So we don't know how many wins we're going to have left to talk about. So we're going to cherish that, even though it was against the Lions. So, it counts. It counts the same. All W's count the same, in case you guys didn't know. So we'll probably gloss over the fact that, it was against their backup quarterback, and it did, still come down to the very end of the game. But, they still won. So we don't have to deal with that particular embarrassment today. But speaking of embarrassment, we'll talk about the play of the offensive line, which was extremely embarrassing early and then, mostly settled down. Obviously, Kyle Pitts had a big game. He's getting very close to the record, so we'll talk about that. Talk about the play of the defense, including some late heroics from Foye Oluokun, and also, of course, give you guys some draft takes. probably, squeeze in a Bills preview just like we've been doing, frequently. We mostly fill it with other stuff and then, maybe a quick preview of the Bills at the end. But lots to talk about, as well as I can officially announce that I will be at the Senior Bowl at the end of January. So excited to be doing that. In case you guys probably noticed on the screen, we are starting up a totally voluntary donation goal to help with travel expenses. I do not get my travel expensed, by the way, guys. So if anyone is inclined to donate, you're welcome to. Everything will go strictly towards covering the trip. And if you feel like it, obviously, you're welcome to, and we do appreciate that. But totally voluntary. Obviously, the show is free for everyone. Unfortunately, Twizzlers only kicked in, the 75 boxes of Twizzlers they sent to Adnan. I did not see any, recompense from that, but, we're working on it. We're working with the big dogs now. We just gotta continue working on that.
For the record, I also would have rather Twizzlers sent me some money instead of Twizzlers.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that we can't always get what we want, right? But I do appreciate anyone who'd like to donate to that. We're tracking it now. We have a goal, and George Costanza's the first one to contribute here with the $5. Thank you so much, George. He says, "Non, I'm officially back on the playoff hype train. Choo choo! Once we beat Buffalo and the Taints to end the season, we're going to the Super Bowl. In Ryan we trust. Here we go, baby. Buffalo is going down." So
George, you're my guy, and I appreciate the optimism. I don't think that we beat Buffalo this weekend. If we really wanted to be on the playoff hype train, we really needed to beat the 49ers.
Yeah.
Instead, we lost that game by instead we looked terrible in that game. Buffalo, it's probably going to be, I think what the Buffalo SB Nation Twitter went back and forth with the Falcoholic Twitter today, and I think they said it's going to be a high of 29 with a 50% chance of snow on Sundays.
Yeah,
so,
I heard that too.
Yep.
Yes, it's not going to be it's going to be football weather, but it's not going to be the best environment for our guys.
Yeah, that'll be a tough game for sure, and we'll definitely talk about why it's going to be so tough on our preview a little bit later in the show. But,
Buffalo is hard enough in good weather in a dome, let alone.
Yeah. It can be a pretty rough place to go play, and that's not even counting the fact that Buffalo is just a really good football team. On top of that, maybe the best defense in the NFL. So I'm sure everything will be fine. I'm sure that we'll be the Falcons definitely won't get waxed in that game, like every other time they've played a good team this year. But we'll get to that.
This isn't the Buffalo from 2001 through a couple of years ago where it's it's Buffalo. That should be an easy win. Yeah, this isn't Trent Edwards playing or Ryan Fitzpatrick starting for them.
Yeah,
Josh Allen is a legitimate MVP contender consistently at this point.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, he had a little bit of a rough patch in the middle of the season, but since then he's played a lot better. And the Buffalo Bills have started to rebound a little bit from that. They beat the Patriots, who I think people sort of started to think they were just going to kind of, inevitably become this great team again, and they've sort of fallen back to earth. So anything can happen. It's possible the Falcons could start looking like a better team too, but we've been waiting for that to happen thus far, and it hasn't. But we will, obviously continue to talk about that. So, Lions game first. I talked about it a lot on Sunday, so I'll open up the floor to you guys first. But, we'll start off with the positives, right? Adnan, what was something that you really enjoyed about the game? I mean, to me, it was obviously Kyle Pitts. Was that your experience as well, or was there anything else good that happened?
We won.
Yeah, that's positive. Yeah. What about the tank, Adnan?
I won't lie. At one point, I was like, "All right, it's full tank season." After that Russell Gage fumble,
it was about to be.
Kyle Pitts was obviously far and away the best player on the field in this game. That was one of those games where one day when we look back at how amazing Kyle Pitts is when he's a perennial All-Pro and on his way to being a Hall of Famer, we'll be like, yeah, that in his rookie season, that Lions game was one of those games where we saw those flashes, along with the games against the Jets and Dolphins, especially. Um, it was, he just looked unguardable, and I cannot wait for the Falcons to give him some more help in the form of, a legitimate wide receiver one on this team,
Yeah.
just so that he's not double and triple covered. Foye Oluokun had the play of the game and deserves the game ball just for that interception. He saved the game, and I'm absolutely convinced that Tim Boyle was going to, lead the Lions to a game-winning touchdown if Foye Oluokun didn't make that play. That was a terrible pass, by the way.
It was really bad. Honestly, Doyle did not play bad like the entire game, but that was a bad throw.
I don't know what he was thinking right there. It's just like he just stared his wide receiver down and threw it in like double, triple coverage. It was, I'm grateful. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
Because, that really bailed out Russell Gage. That bailed out the entire Falcons team. Also, what was Dan Campbell thinking kicking a field goal?
Oh my God, dude. Yeah. We need to talk about that because that was absurd. Like, I don't get it. Like, it was third down. Or no, was it third down?
No, it was fourth down.
Okay. I'm getting confused with another really bad field goal decision from that weekend.
It was definitely fourth down, but it's like you're down 7 with 2.5 minutes left, and you're inside the 10, and you're kicking a field. Like, even after you kick a field goal, you still need a touchdown. It's not even like you're going from like, all right, you need 2 field goals to now 1 if you potentially stop. I don't know.
Yeah, that really spoke of kind of like we put together such a good drive. I don't want to not come away with points here.
Which was a really good drive.
It was a great drive. I mean, it was the entire damn fourth quarter. Like at some point, the graphic was like the Lions have had the ball for 10 minutes. And I was like, yeah, that's right. The Falcons haven't had the ball in the entire fourth quarter. And so it just kind of felt a little bit like they wanted to at least get points and maybe have what ended up happen. Like, we don't know what they said to their defensive players kind of right before that. It was like, it could have been like, hey, pressure's on you. Go for every single turnover that you can, even if you risk, missing a tackle or something like that. So, that could have been the game plan. But yeah, so weird for them to go for a field goal there. I mean, wild.
It doesn't make sense. Like, it's not going to be any easier to score a touchdown. Like, it's not going to get any easier than like inside the 10. Like, if you're going to win this game, you're scoring a touchdown, and I'm sorry, but it's not going to be any easier. Like, even if you got the onside, and did all this crap, like, I mean, it was not going to work. So it just
and the thing, it like kind of did like work out a little bit in that they got the turnover, they forced the fumble, but you can't really. That's hindsight. Like, you can't look retroactively like, all right, they got the turn. Like, they weren't like, it wasn't a guarantee that they were going to force the turnover.
No, the chances of that happening were very low, like very low. So
yeah, I mean, both teams, I will say, the Falcons tried to Falcon this game up. The Lions tried to Lion this game up, and in the end, someone had to win.
Someone had to win.
And that was the Falcons.
Well, so that's why I take. I don't know. I've taken the grain of salt to the whole narrative this week. I know, the Falcoholic, we wrote a piece for kind of covering this, but the 7-2 in 1-score games narrative. And that's awesome. Like, it's great. I think it is a real thing. Like, teams have to believe that they can win in close games, late in games. You have to have not only that confidence, but the focus, and nothing eats away at focus more than fear, anxiety, and a lack of preparedness or belief in yourself. So the Falcons are building something real there. That being said, every single one of their wins has been a 1-score game.
Yeah.
So that's like not necessarily the best metric.
It's not
to point to.
Yeah.
And all of the wins have come against kind of your worst teams on the schedule. That Saints win that looked great at the time has gotten kind of worse as the weeks have gone along, as long as, the Saints aren't playing Tampa Bay. I don't know what the hell's going on there with those two teams, but it's a little bit, I feel like, kind of misleading as a stat, but it wouldn't be if the Falcons were getting better against these bad teams. But it's week 15 now, and you're winning by 1 score against the Detroit Lions. Like
the Tim Boyle Detroit Lions.
Exactly.
Jared
a Lions
Goff,
team
Jared
that was
Goff wins that
missing.
game.
Yeah, probably.
Exactly. Like a Lions team missing a lot of their players. So sure, 7-2, that's great. That's awesome. You technically still alive in the playoff hunt. But to me, this year was about incremental improvement. I think we saw that throughout the first half of the year. And I think this year was better than I expected it to be. But now incremental improvement is beating the bad teams by more than just a little. You gotta beat them early on, control the game, set the pace, dictate the game. I think the Lions actually dictated that game to the Falcons. The Falcons just ended up being able to win the game the Lions wanted to play.
Yeah.
And that's still problematic to me, especially when you're going to go up against a Buffalo team that is very, very good at making teams play on their terms.
Yeah. And just adding to that point, 7-2 in 1-score games, teams are normally like then hover around 500.
Yeah,
like
that'll regress.
That's normally the mark. And yeah, it normally does regress to the mean. Last year, the Falcons were 0-8 in 1-score games. And,
it was very bad. Yeah.
And we were like, all right.
Like 0-16.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, all right, this is a 4-win team, but you know that they're better than a 4-win team just because of that stat. Now we're on the other end of it. Now this is a 7-win team this year, but they're not really as good as normal 7-win teams. Like I could argue that this is maybe the worst 7-win team I've ever seen in my life.
If they were to, according to DVOA, they're in contention for that title, like serious contention for the worst 7-win
Kevin, I thought
team.
we were starting off with the positives, man.
We are. We started with the positive. No, I think it's a positive that, look, like there's always some element of chance to it, but let's be honest, like squeezing 7 wins out of what is probably a bottom 5 roster in the NFL, like squeezing 7 wins out of that, there's something to that. It doesn't necessarily mean that, anything serious, but
here's what I attribute that to is I think the Falcons have gotten much better. I think one area of the game that they have really upgraded in is like kind of changing their strategy in game on the fly to match whatever type of game that they're in. And it's a real thing. It was something that I kind of learned early on being part of the organization and getting to talk to some football people, is that kind of high score. There's a reason high scoring games often turn into shootouts and not blowouts, because if offenses are really clicking and churning, it means defenses are on the field for a little bit longer. They're going to get tired as games go along, but it also means that the other team changes their offensive strategy to score more points. They become more, risk acceptable. They want to take shots. They know what type of game they have to play. So both teams switch what their strategy is. I think the Falcons have done a really good job matching offensive and defensive strategy in their games to correctly fit the type of game that is being played, and that they kind of coach their players through however the game is unfolding, whether that be kind of a higher scoring game like the Miami game, or what we saw last week where, it kind of nothing really was super clicking on offense until it did, until a big pass play happened, and then they were able to get down the field, and they just made enough plays to set themselves up to make that final defensive play to win the game. And that's really good complementary football. So I think that that's been a big positive that hasn't necessarily been talked about enough under Arthur Smith so far in year one. And it's why I'm confident that I think that is sustainable year over year, is just good in-game coaching. And it's what we see from some of the best teams around the league.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that that's meaningful. Like I do think that, I think it's important to be able to, because we saw, under Quinn the last year in particular, like they were sort of the opposite of what they are now, where they were sort of just finding ways to lose these games, and you could tell the team's confidence was shot. Like they sort of, you could just tell that they tightened up when the score got close, and it just felt inevitable that they were going to blow it. And that's
certainly did feel like that.
Yeah. And like this year, it really hasn't happened. They've certainly, like Washington comes to mind, right? Again, that they should have won, that they didn't. But other than that, when they've had to close out games and make the plays to win in these one-score games, they've won almost every single time. Like they've found a way to do it, whether that's on offense or defense. So, you have to think it's at least partially coaching. And it's probably also just like you guys were saying, regression to the mean to some extent too. But
There is
go ahead.
regression to the mean, and I'm sorry to cut you off,
No,
but
that's fine.
I agree with Will regarding the coaching, and with you, Kevin, regarding the upgrade in coaching year over year, this year versus last year, because last year's team was more talented than this year's team. Like I think I can say that objectively. This is one of the least talented teams in the NFL, like especially on defense.
Yeah.
And for even with that regression to the mean, for you to, for this coaching staff to win 7 games with this team, 3 more wins than what we saw last year's coaching staff with a better team, I think that says something. And, I do think that it says something like the one-score games. Sure, 7-2 is not sustainable. Sure, 0-8 isn't sustainable. But there is a little bit of something to that, in that those coaching decisions matter in those one-score games. Like sometimes it's just the narrowest of margins that can make a difference in the NFL. We always say it's a game of inches. It's a game of incremental decisions as well. And I feel like this coaching staff has been much better with those incremental decisions, especially in comparison to last year's coaching staff.
Yeah.
I would say to that, I mean, I think that I don't want to discredit the talent of the players who were on the field, because I do think that if you play in the NFL, like you're in the top 1% of all
Yeah,
athletes
absolutely. And
in
I'm
the
not saying
planet.
they're not like in
Right.
comparison to other people, of course, they're like the
Yeah.
best of the best. But in comparison to
To other
last
NFL
year's
athletes.
team,
Right.
especially to last year's team, I don't think that this team, if you just made it like a hypothetical scenario, neutral field, neutral coaching staffs, last year's team versus this year's team, I think last year's team, all things considered, would win comfortably against this year's squad.
See, I guess the part that I would push back is, sure, the talent may have been overall greater on with Tack McKinley and Vic Beasley and Keanu Neal and Ricardo Allen and DeMonte Casey and all of these guys, Devondre Campbell, like, sure, if but I think that the floor is much higher with this current unit.
Yeah.
And I think that they play to their talent level more consistently than the previous kind of group of defensive players particularly did. And I don't know why that is. Because I was kind of there week to week. I saw the Dan Quinn certainly didn't change week to week. His approach seemed extremely consistent. The players always kind of were saying the right things, preaching the right message. So I don't know why the productivity seemed to dip from guys week to week, but it really wasn't since the 2017 season when we saw them gelling. 2016, 2017, I think were the peak of the kind of that 2016 draft class on defense. Those were their peak years. And I know 2018, a lot of injuries, but they never recaptured that kind of swagger, that mentality. And I don't know why that is, but I think that the guys that they have right now, even if their peaks are not as high as maybe a Keanu Neal on his best day, I think that they're playing closer to the upper echelon of their abilities on a week-to-week basis than the other guys did. So, sure, they may not be as talented, but I think that maybe they play at a higher level week to week, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that also goes back to coaching.
I think it does as well. Yeah, I agree.
I feel like this year's coaching staff, and that was my point entirely, in comparing the talent levels and saying that it's more impressive that this year's coaching staff has managed to get 7 wins out of this team versus last year's team staff getting 4 wins out of that team, which, on paper, you should have expected more than 4 wins. That was better than a 4-win team.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
And what's even weirder is the fact that A, none of those 4 wins came with Dan Quinn, but also B, now like seeing what he's done in Dallas, it's not like he's a bad coach. Like, he's not a bad football coach. It's really hard to know what went wrong with the Falcons teams over the last couple of years. I mean, that's something I know
Yeah.
we've all been asking for the last 4 years. So we don't need to rehash that now, but it is maybe the most like kind of optimistic thing for this team that they seem to have brushed that off. Whatever that is, whatever that was, the fact that they are 7-2 in these one-score games speaks to, all right, like they now have a little bit of self-confidence in these closer games. And sure, they're coming against weaker, lesser opponents, but like that's fine. Start somewhere.
Yeah.
And to that, I do really give a lot of credit to the coaching staff, but also to a lot of the veteran players that they brought in. You know, Eric Harris, Duron Harmon, Fabian Moreau, these types of guys who've come in, and I think that they really put a lot on their shoulders early on in the terms of teaching of what they wanted to do, but then also setting that tone and that mentality. And then also some of the guys on the defensive line. You know, I know the pass rush has been atrocious, but I don't think the defensive line as a whole has been the absolute train wreck that we maybe expected 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, I think they definitely stepped up against the run. I think they found, they really have found, I think, some keepers, some guys that I think are worth keeping around. I think Eric Harris, asking him to be the full-time starter, it was probably never going to be great, but I mean, I think he was solid. Like he's been a solid guy, and for vet minimum, I mean, getting a solid starter, that's a good deal. Fabian Moreau, I think, has been better. It's been about what I expected, honestly. Like late,
considering he's getting like all of the looks.
Yes,
it's like nobody's throwing at AJ
yes.
Terrell. It's either if you like, it's interesting looking every week at like all the PFF breakdowns because it's the linebackers, like the running backs and tight ends are just like 10 targets, 8 targets, 7 targets, and then it's like AJ Terrell's receiver like 2 targets, and then the other receiver like 7 targets.
Yep.
But it's either Fabian Moreau or it's Foye and Dion are just getting the brunt of the passing attack.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think Moreau has been absolutely fine. I would be happy to bring him back as the corner 2 again next year. And it's like these guys are doing it with, the worst pass rush in the NFL in front of them too. I think the secondary deserves a lot of credit for being able to play at the level that they are with very little pass rush help to prop them up. And, Terrell, great. Moreau, I think, is a good corner 1. Maybe he'll get more money from another team this year. We'll see. But, I think Jalen Hawkins looks like a guy that could be a starter for you. The one guy we haven't seen as much of as we wanted to is Richie Grant, who seems to be playing like slot corner now.
May not see him this weekend either.
Yeah, possibly not. I know with the new COVID rules mean like theoretically you could be back, but I don't know. I find it hard to believe it would be that quick, but I mean we're seeing guys clear it in like 5 days now, so I don't know. I just hope everyone's healthy. Yeah,
I kind of trust. I know Richie Grant's kind of like been brought along slowly, as opposed to somebody like Ade Ogundeji or somebody like that who was kind of right in there from day one. I trust this coaching staff, at least based on what I've heard. Now, obviously, time will tell if they deserve that trust. But so far, I kind of liked what I've heard from them in that every rookie's at a different spot. And if they've got to rely on some of these rookies, they're going to get the ones in there that they feel are ready. And I just kind of feel like maybe they brought in the 2 veteran strong safeties or safeties this offseason for a reason, and that they maybe had a plan, and that they're bringing Richie Grant along a little bit slowly because I do think safety is kind of a complex role in the Dean Pease defense. And so I think they want to make sure that he's like nailed it and he understands it before really putting it all on his shoulders. But I kind of like we talked about with quarterbacks, right? Like let them sit for a year, let them learn, they'll be ready, all that stuff. Yeah. I kind of, that approach works for me as well with other positions, especially when you've got some capable starters in front of them, like a Jalen Hawkins, like a Duron Harmon, like an Eric Harris. Maybe that's a luxury for the Falcons to let Richie Grant really be like super ready to go in year 2.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, if he's like starting next year and looks great, no one's going to give a shit that he didn't play this year. That's just how it goes. Right. But I guess I think and we'll see. Like they've been very tight-lipped about the plan, which is their right, and most coaches will be that way. But you sort of hope that they didn't draft Richie Grant to play their slot corner role, like because I think drafting a guy to play a different position than he played in college that high when there were arguably better players there that are
top
playing
of the second round.
Yeah, like Asante Samuel,
they did trade back.
They did trade back, to be fair, but like that would be a weird choice to me. So I guess I feel like he should, like, if he can play the slot and rotate down
like,
there,
I don't
know
what's the top slot corner in the league worth. I mean, if they feel he can be the best, if he could be AJ Boye from a few years ago, like,
right,
sure, maybe, what's that worth? Is that the top of the second round?
Brian Poole,
God, if only.
But we got him undrafted.
I know, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I guess I find it hard to believe that was the plan, that like they wanted him to just be their slot corner, because I don't know. But
I think it's a learn. I just think it's a learning curve thing.
Yeah, and we'll see next year. If he's not playing next year, I think people will be screaming bust. But I find that hard to believe. I think he'll be playing next year, like starting. So we hope, at least. So his play hasn't even been bad. Like, I think when he's played, he's been absolutely fine. Like, I mean, he's been a high risk, high reward player, which is exactly what he was in college. So I have not been disappointed in his play. I've been disappointed at the lack of play. So I hope he continues to get reps out there. Let's touch on a couple of donations coming in. We got Jason Gaines with the $2. Thank you, Jason. He says, R.I.P. John Madden. Yes, big R.I.P. to John Madden. Absolute legend. He said, Madden called two of the biggest playoff moments in Falcons history, including the upset win of the Vikings in the 98 NFC Championship and the 2002 Falcons upset win at Lambeau Field over the Packers, Vic versus Favre. So, yeah, we haven't touched on Madden at all, but it's definitely worth a few minutes of chat, because Madden is an absolute legend, one of the true pioneers, and I mean one of the best casters. And he will be missed. Just really, really hard to think about football as it is today without Madden. And go ahead if you need to. It's fine.
He's a true football man, like John Madden. I appreciate John Madden so even just with his video game, the impact that he's made. Just how many people growing up, playing the John Madden video game, how many people really learned football just through that game, and how many people really fell in love with football playing that video game. And I'm definitely one of those people who really I feel like my football IQ, my football knowledge growing up as a kid, it really grew, seeing the concept, seeing the plays, for myself, playing that video game. Just like you said, the entire landscape of football will be completely different without John Madden's impact, and without his influence on the game. And that's someone who's on the Mount Rushmore of the most influential people in the sport, I think, without a doubt. And yeah, definitely he leaves behind a legacy, and that's really all you can really ask for. And he will be talked about for generations to come.
Yeah, it's so hard. He had such a profound impact on the game as a whole. It's really just hard to sort of put into words and factor in what it would be like without him. I mean, you can't. I can't think of football without Madden. Madden is synonymous with football, and you mentioned the game. I mean, it brought in so many young fans, so many people that liked football but weren't serious about it, and really, Madden is not the real NFL, but it is a very fun, easy to enter version of the NFL, and I think it really helped a lot of people get into the sport. And he was also just a legendary caster, a very, very good football coach, and just a great guy by all accounts. I never personally got to meet him, but just a great guy and one of the pillars of the sport. So it's really, really hard to see someone like that go, but his legacy will be felt for a very long time, and will continue to be felt. So Thank you, John Madden, for everything you did. Rest in peace, buddy. All right. Got another donation here from George Costanza, show benefactor, with the $5. Thank you, George. He says, oh, okay, George. Word up. He says, just so everyone knows, George says he will match 100% of donations toward the Senior Bowl trip. So, that is extremely generous, George. Thank you so much. So, yeah, guys, if you donate towards the trip, George will match your donation and will greatly help relieve the personal load on me, because I'm going either way. But, you know, every dollar you guys give me is a dollar I don't have to spend out of my own pocket. So I do really appreciate it. Okay, he also says you have to make sure, though, that I scout Jordan Davis, who's going to be the best player in the draft. So, yes, I agree, George. I will definitely scout Jordan Davis for you. I will pay a lot of attention to him.
Is Jordan Davis going to be at the Senior Bowl?
I believe he has said he will be there. He's definitely been invited. So,
no, I mean, yeah, I would hope he would have been invited.
Yeah. I'll say either Neal or Davis are can't-miss players. You can't teach size. Put him next to Grady. Beefy.
Did you see the video of 3 players blocking Grady Jarrett this past game? You know, I'm sure that won't be happening if Jordan Davis was on the team.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Davis, his role is hard to quantify, and this is a good time for us to sort of seg into some draft discussion, because I know everyone loves draft talk. And yeah, Clay Melton, I see your question about the rumors surrounding Ryan, and we'll talk about that too, because I think that's worth touching on. But yeah, I mean, I think Jordan Davis is not a player that's going to fill up the stat sheet, but his presence changes the way teams have to play your defense. And I think that it just helps everybody else, because you can't block Jordan Davis one-on-one. And if you have concerns about his conditioning and all that stuff, yes, that's fair, but he is a very good player and a very unique player. So it's hard to sort of quantify exactly what his impact is, but I think it is certainly something worth discussing in that top 10, top 15 range. All right. I got another draft take coming from Brandon Brass with $3. Thank you so much, Brandon. He says, Kenny Pickett seems to keep being picked to the Falcons in mock drafts, but what are your thoughts on David Ojabo or Evan Neal as our first-round pick?
I don't think we'll be in position to take Neal, to be honest.
Yeah. If we were still picking 8th, we'd have an outside shot at Neal, but I think Evan Neal's a top 8 pick. So it's going to be really hard. I mean, if Neal fell to where the Falcons were picking, I would absolutely not hesitate. He would be probably, he's in my top 5 players in this entire class that I would take for the Falcons. I think he's probably 3. I think it would probably be Thibodeau, Hutchinson, Neal would be my top 3. So he's I would love it. I just don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. But David Ojabo, different story.
I was going to say, even if Neal somehow falls to 12 and the Falcons get a steal, there's still going to be many people complaining, being oh,
they didn't take a pass, they didn't take an edge. Yeah. You can't force it, guys. You can't. You have to let the draft come to you. That's what the best teams do. You can't force it. So, all right, yeah. And David Ojabo, though, I would say that yeah, I like it. I'm not sure that I love it if we are picking at 10 or 9, but I think it's a good pick. It's hard to quibble, because the only concern with Ojabo is that he's a one-year wonder, but nothing on tape makes you think that this is just some sort of flash in the pan season. I mean, obviously he was on a talented defensive line with Aiden Hutchinson, but he wasn't just only cleaning up for Hutchinson. I mean, Ojabo is clearly a tremendous athlete, and was extremely productive this year and looked dominant. So I think if you're coming away with an edge, the one that's most likely to be there at pick 10 is Ojabo. So it's definitely a player that I'm going to scout and look at a lot. But I don't right now. I'm not exactly. I guess I wouldn't say sold on him as the Falcons pick there, but it could happen. I think I mostly watched Hutchinson, so I've kind of just on Michigan. I've basically watched Hutchinson, and you see Ojabo, like he's just killing it across from him. So I mean, I can't officially make a determination on that, but I think he's certainly someone that is reasonable to mock to the Falcons at that spot. I know. Shaquavius is asking about DeMarvin Leal. Yeah, I don't know anything about his legal troubles. We'll see. That's up to the team to sort of evaluate that stuff. But DeMarvin Leal is incredible, and I think he is a really special, unique prospect, and I'm definitely into it. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely down for DeMarvin Leal at like pick 9 or 10. Obviously, if there is some sort of legal trouble he's dealing with, the team will have to evaluate that. We can't really comment on it, but yeah. Oh, Brandon says he meant to ask about Nakobe Dean. Yeah, I mean, I like Dean. I think Nakobe Dean's pretty good. I don't think he's like top 10 good. So unfortunately, that means they're probably not going to be in range for Dean. But he's a very good player. Yeah, and Vlad brings up a good point. I did do a mock the other day. It wasn't the one I ended up publishing, but Kyle Hamilton, the Notre Dame safety, did fall to, I think it was pick 8. So if Kyle Hamilton falls, you have to take him. Like if you're picking it like at 9 or 10 and Hamilton's still there, you can't let him fall any further. Like you have to you have to take him. He's very special player. I think you could make an argument that he's like the Kyle Pitts of this class, that he's just like the most talented player there is. And if he wasn't a safety, he'd probably be like a number 1 overall type of player. So I'm definitely down for Kyle Hamilton. I don't care that it's not the best position. I think that type of player, if you can add a legitimate like number 1 overall player at pick 10, you do it and you don't argue. You just do it. And damn everything else. If you draft good players, your team's gonna be better. And Kyle Hamilton would make this team much better. And I would rather go after that than swing on like the 4th edge rusher and Ojabo. And that's not to say Ojabo isn't good, but I'd rather take what's pretty much closest, I think, to the sure thing in this class, which is Kyle Hamilton. I would take that over someone like Ojabo, probably even over someone like DeMarvin Leal. But yeah. Are you back, Will?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, cool.
I just haven't fully dug into the draft stuff yet.
Yeah, that's fine. So... I'm a degenerate, so I don't blame you guys.
But no, Kyle Hamilton though. I mean, it's interesting because like if there is one position that I think the NFL has maybe been maybe as experimental as the college level, it would be the safety position with moving them to linebacker and kind of doing some interchangeable stuff in the back end of the defense, kind of like the middle back end. Mm-hmm. So who's to say Kyle Hamilton could be an incredible kind of athlete at the linebacker position at the next level, but it's probably more of like a Derwin James type. And could just do it all and play wherever you want, which, I don't know if actually the Dean Pease defense probably could use that more than like a true athlete at the linebacker position. It's more the safety that they like to move around and roam around as that kind of like star position.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah, it'd be a good fit.
I think it would be a great fit. It's not the biggest need.
No.
But I think and this is something that people often get wrong, I think, with the draft. Like, the first round, it's more important than ever to take the best player that you have available to you. Because the talent level at the position groups, it varies so much in every single class. It's different every single year. Like last year, there were a lot of really good quarterbacks. You saw them come off really early. There weren't a lot of great edge rushers, which is why the Falcons, like if there was like a blue chip edge rusher last year that was available at 4, the Falcons would have taken. But there wasn't. There wasn't, Chase Young that was there for the taking. And that's just part of the draft. Like every year, it's going to be different at the top. So you sort of just have to see what happens, especially if you're picking further down. You have to kind of wait and see how things sort of track to you, how it unfolds. And then you make your decision based on that. You don't go in saying, I have to get an edge rusher in the first round, because you're going to make a mistake. Like, if it's like, oh, I need to get an edge rusher, and then you see Thibodeau, Hutchinson, and Karloftis go off before your pick at 10, are you taking the fourth best edge rusher there because you said you had to get an edge rusher? Um, you know, I don't know, but I think Kyle Hamilton has better tape than Isaiah Simmons, and they are somewhat similar. I agree,
Oh
but
man, I loved Isaiah Simmons though.
yeah, I think Kyle Hamilton has better tape than Isaiah Simmons. I think he'll be a little bit quicker to adjust, but that's a good comp. I mean, they're similar. They're sort of this like unicorn, quote unquote. To use a word that's been thrown around for another player the Falcons took really high. He's that type of player. He could be really special. But again, I agree with what George is saying that that I think I view safety as sort of like the cherry top for a great defense. If you have a great safety, that can take like a decent to good defense and make it elite. That sort of player. Kyle Hamilton alone isn't going to just change the entire Falcons defense, but this is not a 1-year rebuild. This is not like we're trying to compete for the Super Bowl in 2022. As much as you guys might like to think that, as much fun as that would be, this team is still very much in process. So if you can go out and get a blue chip guy at 10, you do it. Like there's just aren't that many of those players in every draft class. So I think you just have to go get these great players and you make it work. You find the rest of the pieces around them. But,
nor is it just entirely on draft class.
Yeah.
I think that we got kind of so conditioned, I think, under Thomas, maybe the second half of Thomas's run as general manager, to kind of think mostly about like kind of the draft class, especially once DQ got there. Was they really wanted to build through the draft because that's what had worked for them in Seattle. And I think that one of the things that really stood out to me in Terry Fontenot's opening press conference was that his belief was you target needs in free agency and talent in the draft. And I think that makes a lot of sense because I think that you have direct one-to-one comparisons with free agents. You've seen them against NFL talent. And so you can evaluate them to what your expectations are. And that makes more sense if you're looking to really fill an immediate need. We need to get better next year. How do we do that? Let's go find a guy who has been better than our guy at the NFL level. And that's going to be the tricky part, I think, next year for Atlanta is still with the financial limitations that they're going to have is navigating, the way that Terry wants to probably ideally improve this team. But I agree completely with you, Kevin. I think that like that makes sense from an improvement standpoint to go with free agency. From a draft standpoint, talent all day long. Go get the best guy, especially in the first round. Having Kyle Pitts on this team probably is accounted for at least a couple of wins.
Probably. Can you imagine?
And probably more. Well, I was trying to actually think about this team without Cordero Patterson the other day. Like it's just nothing. Or even Matt Ryan. Like what do you think? What do you think this team is without Matt Ryan as the quarterback this year?
Right.
Like 4-12 at this point or something?
I mean, yeah, probably worse. Probably
Maybe.
worse.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm not sure this team has more than 1 or 2 wins without Matt Ryan. So
yeah.
That's basically where we are. Like this roster is not good. But it's hard, and we've talked about it. It's hard to blame the current regime too much for that because they had no money. They had some extra draft picks, but not exactly premium ones. And they sort of just had to start from the ground floor, and that's what this year is. And I think for most of us, yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting though. It's almost kind of like the epitome of what we saw the problem becoming for the Atlanta roster in the final few years of the DQ TD regime, and in that it was highlighted by some great players at their positions.
Yeah.
And the cost of that was overall depth at a lot of other positions that maybe weren't, as highlighted. And we're seeing this year, the Falcons legitimately have a case for 5 guys to be in the Pro Bowl this year. That's a pretty high number for we're talking about a team that is a player or 2 away from being like 3 wins. And I think that we're seeing the dichotomy, and really where the work needs to be laid is getting more of these guys like Eric Harris, like Deron Harmon. These guys, when they're asked to be kind of your key figures on defense, maybe don't meet that challenge. I would be happy with one of those guys in a secondary if he's the third best piece in my secondary. Like those are not bad players to kind of build a team around. That's where the Falcons need to make their heyday, and it's where Terry Fontenot has been really good, I think, throughout his career. Mm-hmm. So I trust him to do that. But yeah, it's been wild. It's like we're seeing really good young talent emerge for Atlanta, which is exciting. But then we're also they can't kind of hold up in a lot of other areas, which is where they get into problems against better teams.
Yep, exactly. When you have that sort of talent disparity,
yep,
it's really obvious. And that's why this team is the way it is. And I think it does say something about the coaching and the fact that, they were able to sort of bring in enough guys to keep the roster afloat, to keep it from being, the NFL's worst team. And when they play teams of similar caliber in terms of talent, they've tended to win those games almost every time. So I think that does say something about the coaching. And then when they get into matchups with teams that are legitimately more talented than them pretty much everywhere, it's ugly. And that's also pretty predictable based on... But if you're, DVOA says this is the 32nd worst roster in the NFL. Now, I don't know, I think DVOA has been extremely harsh on the Falcons this year. I'd certainly agree that they're one of the worst rosters, but worst, I sort of disagree on that. But regardless of what you think, even if they're the worst roster in the NFL, they've outplayed the next 10 rosters at this point.
I don't think they're the worst roster.
I don't either. I don't think you could possibly be the worst roster in the NFL with Matt Ryan. There's too many teams without a quarterback. Which is part of why I think it's generally, I think DVOA is a great metric, but like all metrics, it is sometimes flawed, and I think it has been extremely harsh on the Falcons this year. So, but it doesn't necessarily change much. Maybe they're like the 28th roster or something like that. So we're sort of quibbling over like minimal things here.
But they do have the fewest 40-plus yard plays allowed in the NFL.
They have 0. Yeah.
0.
So I guarantee you that the Bills are going to throw some bombs to like mess up that stat.
No,
sure.
Dave's tweet was so good. Just about, he was like Josh Allen getting 2 38-yard runs on Sunday. That was so good.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But
one of them will be where he breaks away, but they started out at the 38-yard line.
Yep. So he can't. he runs it in from 38 yards out. It's still only a 38-yard play.
Hey.
So the record is intact. So
exactly. The rules are the rules, man.
Well, we can hang that banner up in the Benz. We haven't had any banner to hang up since 2016.
That's true. Like, allowed 0 40-plus yard plays in 2021. That's a banner I would like to hang.
It's no less embarrassing than the Colts AFC finalist banner.
AFC finalists. That's a great. I did love that one. That one's pretty good. All right. Well, before we get into our Bills preview and some more talk, let me quickly remind folks to please like and subscribe. Those metrics both really help us out. Do appreciate that a lot. And fingers crossed that, I don't lose internet again, because that happened twice on the post-game show. So let's, not do that again. So far, so good on that account. Make sure you follow my wonderful co-hosts Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way, Will McFadden at the very easy to remember at Will McFadden. And you can check out the Patreon at patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. If you're interested in having some questions answered, helping send me to the Senior Bowl, you can donate at the link in the show description, streamlabs.com/Falcoholic. And apparently George will match your donation 100%. So George, very generous. Everyone else, thank you for donating as well. And thank you for allowing that quick personal ad break, because we don't actually have real ad breaks on this channel. But let's touch on the Bills quickly, because I feel like if we just keep talking about the draft and the offseason, we'll probably just never go back to the Bills. So yeah, obviously the Bills, one of the NFL's best defenses, one of the better offenses as well. A running quarterback who the Falcons have really tended to struggle with. Will, I'll let you get the first stab at this one. Do you hold out any hope, or are you, sort of resigned to this one?
No, I do hold out some hope.
Only a fool's hope.
I think that um, I went back and I watched both the Bills game against the Patriots this past week, which was incredibly impressive from the Bills, and then I went back and rewatched the Titans Bills game from Week 5, which take that with a grain of salt. But from last season, Arthur Smith, obviously offensive coordinator, like you have to assume that he's gonna have some kind of the same game plan tendencies. And so what I noticed, what the Titans did was some real deep zone stuff. And that's not necessarily news now, given what we know about how teams adjusted to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, specifically last season, and kind of adopting this cover 2 deep drop, put a blanket over those explosive plays and make them just pick their way down the field. Tennessee really employed a defense like that. We've seen Atlanta, I think, do similar things on the back end. I believe more out of necessity than necessarily desire to play that way. But I think that they will kind of deploy the same strategy against Buffalo this week and kind of try to make Josh Allen pick their way down the field, which is something that New England did not do. And they really challenged Buffalo man defense, bringing some pressure. The offensive line for Buffalo played a great game, and Josh Allen was really efficient, really kind of decisive. His first reads, boom, 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 the ball was out. He took his shots. When he took his shots down the field, he was on target. Stephon Diggs came up with some big plays, and it was just a really, really efficient game for Buffalo's offense. And their defense played really well also. And so I think as it pertains to Atlanta, defensively, I expect a lot of zone. I kind of expect them maybe to more spy Josh Allen than try to rush him, because I don't think they're going to really be able to get home. And they can't afford, I think, on the back end to send extra guys. Josh Allen's too mobile. He can get away. He can buy time. And I think they're going to want to blanket the back end. So that's kind of what I expect from Atlanta defensively. It's not, they've been burned doing that strategy a lot. The Tampa Bay game comes to mind when Chris Godwin seemingly had like the best receiving day of all time. So, something like that could be in store for Cole Beasley or Stephon Diggs, like one of those guys capable of doing that. But yeah, at least we've seen that work for Tennessee, and Buffalo still had a really good game offensively in that game. They just didn't score any points. So, a few turnovers, maybe Atlanta's defense can make something happen.
Yeah, they're going to have to. It's going to have to be turnovers. We've talked about it before when they played like the 49ers. They did get some turnovers. They just didn't do anything with them. That was the problem. Like this defense has actually been getting some turnovers lately. So I think that's the key to any good upset is turnovers, of course. They've shown the ability to create some. They just have to cash it in, when they get the chance and not do what they did against the 49ers. The problem is the Bills are maybe the best defense they played all year, if not one of the best. So this offense is going to have a really, 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 really hard time moving the ball. It's going to be really ugly, and I hope they can do it. I don't think there's a 0% chance that they win this game or anything like that, but they would need to play a perfect game on offense to probably score 20 plus, which is the magic number for this team. This team has scored more than 20 points. I believe they've only lost one game, maybe two, and they've won every other game. I think the only game they've won where they scored less than 20 was the Giants, and it was the Giants. So the Bills are not the Giants. So the 20 is the magic number, and then getting to 20 against the Bills, it's going to take a really good game from them, I think. So they have to do that, and then they somehow have to keep this Bills offense from like going crazy, which teams have been able to do it at times. It's just a little bit of a streaky offense. Against they've gone cold sometimes. So they could go cold in the cold weather. Of Buffalo, it's very cold up there. And if it gets into like a ground and pound game, their running game hasn't been great. Devin Singletary has been playing better since he's sort of been given sort of the reins.
I think
But
the biggest factor for the weather will probably be the wind. I think I saw where they're kind of like expecting gusts around like 20 miles an hour. And, if you kind of like quarterbacks have been on record many times saying that the cold they can handle, the rain they can handle, it's the wind that is like the hardest thing for a passing game. Because, we saw, well, it was the Buffalo game, right? Like several weeks ago where
Patriots game.
the clips of Patriots, were they playing the Bills though?
Yeah, it was the Patriots Bills on Monday night where the
Yeah.
Patriots ran the ball like 40 straight plays.
Exactly. Yeah. And the clips of the pregame like field goal attempts, just the ball being blown straight back in the direction of the kicker. It's not going to be that bad, but that's where like I think we're going to see a lot of running because of the wind, not necessarily because of the cold, but I agree. I think that kind of benefits the Falcons because the Bills, almost against kind of like stereotype, like they're a passing team. You wouldn't think of Buffalo and
Right.
like the cold weather and all that stuff as, oh yeah, they're like the most pass happy team in the league. Like, what are we talking about? So they a cold, windy game may actually help the Falcons a little bit.
Yeah. They're gonna have to uncork one of their good rushing games. Those it's been pretty much hit or miss in terms of like whether they run the ball well or not. But if they can uncork a good rushing game, they're gonna have a much better chance with the weather the way it's projected to be. I just don't know. It's gonna be very difficult.
Yeah, I admire your guys' optimism. I think the Falcons get blown out in this game.
I think it's entirely possible.
I agree.
Yeah, the Bills, I think this is the toughest game on the schedule, to be honest. The Bills are 9-6, but they're so much better than their record indicates. I think they have the best point difference in the entire NFL. They have the number 3 scoring offense and the number 3 scoring defense in the NFL. So, they're top 5 in both categories. The reason why they're 9-6 is they're 0-5 in one-score games this season. Like, they've gotten so unlucky.
Yeah.
And we talked about how if a team is really winless in one-score games, that indicates, a string of bad luck, more times than not. Like Josh Allen, what he did against the Patriots was unbelievable. And
so good.
And just being that dual threat. And, of course, he made the defense like account for him. And he just pulled away that extra defender and just used it to his benefit time and time again. And it was just, he's hitting his stride. The Buffalo Bills are hitting their stride. Stephon Diggs has been hitting his stride the last few weeks. He's not as good as he was last year, where, last year he was maybe one of the 3 best wide receivers in the NFL statistically. This year he still has over 1,000 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. But yeah, Dawson Knox is another guy who could have a really big game. He has 9 touchdowns this year. He's an incredible red zone target, and he has 9 touchdowns despite missing 4 games with a broken hand. Their running backs aren't the best, but Josh Allen doubles down as a de facto like running back as well. I don't know. Like, I don't envision a scenario where the Falcons really have much of a chance in this game. And I mean, it's no shame in losing to Buffalo. A lot of teams have done it. A lot of teams will. I think that this is the best team in the AFC, not named the Kansas City Chiefs.
They remind me a lot of San Francisco, kind of at this point with the way they're playing. It seems like Atlanta caught San Francisco right when they were ready to play their best football, and Buffalo kind of played their best football, I think, last week against New England. That game was amazing for them, really on both sides of the ball, even though it kind of was close in the fourth quarter. I think that was more a testament to how well like the Patriots played. Not that the Bills kind of let up at all, but I agree with you, Adnan. I think that this has very much the same potential to end up kind of like that 49ers game where it felt like they could do really whatever they wanted to do. offensively, and then defensively. I mean, like, what could the Falcons do? Like,
right.
Not much of anything. And there's serious potential for this game to end up like it. And that's really troublesome. I think that the scariest part for me, I think, about the Bills offense is really what Josh Allen can do with his legs. Because if the Falcons are going to play kind of that deeper zone defense and put a blanket, I would be shocked if they came out and challenged them man coverage, but I would actually be excited about that because I kind of think the Falcons have been at their best in man coverage so far this season. It seems teams try to target AJ Terrell, and that's usually worked out for Atlanta. But I expect a lot of zone in this game, and I expect it to kind of go like the Tampa Bay game did, and just like letting Josh Allen kind of find his guys all throughout the afternoon. But when he's not doing that, the deeper they drop, the further they have to run to get up and get Josh Allen, and he's a really good athlete in space. And I can see him ripping off a couple of 12-yard runs on third down, and all it takes is a few of those in a game, and that can kind of swing the outcome in one direction or the other. So yeah, I think that we've been trying to be really positive about the Falcons, because the reality is, like, on any given Sunday, as cliche as that is, like, I've been in attendance to a lot of games that I never expected the Falcons in a million years to win, and I've been at a lot of games that I never ever thought they would lose, and I've watched them lose those games. So who knows? It could happen on Sunday, but not super duper high on their chances.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. You shouldn't be like expecting them to win. I think if they were to make it really close and exciting, that would be about. I think that's about the best we can hope for. But I'm certainly open to a win. But
okay, you're open to it. Good.
I'm open to it. If they want to deliver it to me, I will pay the DoorDash if they deliver a win to me. So I'll pick up the fee for that one. But it's I mean I'll be cheering. I'll be excited. Hoping for a win. But don't get your hopes up too much, folks, because it's not worth getting pissed off in week 17. It's just not. The fact that this technically could be a relevant game for this team at this point in the season is about what I hoped for going in. Like, I was like, I want this team to be playing like meaningful December football, and they have been. Like, yeah. they've been very much in the mix. So to me, it's like, okay, I'm fairly satisfied with that. All I got, like, to me, if they just complete the sweep of the Saints, like, we're gravy. We're totally gravy at this point. So, get a top 10 pick, sweep the Saints,
could knock them out of the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if you do those couple things, I think you're looking at a fan base that is probably going to be pretty happy, all things considered. I mean, obviously we would like them to make the playoffs and all that stuff, but considering what we know, which is that this is one of the worst rosters in the league, with a new coaching staff, a lot of moving pieces, salary cap disaster, the fact that they're in contention mathematically and realistically for the playoffs at the end of December 29th. That's an achievement. It's not necessarily like something to hang up a banner in a stadium for or anything. But
I think the further we get away from this season, the more warmly we will look back upon this 2021 year.
Yeah.
I think that kind of in the week to week of it all, because they are still in the mix, like we are kind of living and dying week to week. When you pull back and you kind of take more of a macro, like 30,000 foot view, I think that where we were expectation wise coming into the season, certainly after like the Julio news and all of that, and it was like, oh damn, they're like they're going rebuild. Like, is Matt Ryan out the door next? All that stuff. To be 7-8 with 2 games to go and still in the hunt for a playoff spot, it's not too bad. And given some of the ascensions we've seen from some key players, some key young players on this roster, things could be worse at the end of the year. So I'm of the opinion that, like, while now, we're sitting here kind of being like, they're probably going to get blown out by the Bills on Sunday.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
When we look back and say February, I think it'll be like, okay, well, there's some stuff here to clearly build around. That's a good first place to start.
Yes, totally agree with you there. Yeah, Audra, anything else you wanted to add about this game before we start wrapping things up?
Yeah, I'm also really glad that we're competitive going into January.
Yeah,
Like that's a hell of a
it helps our
job.
coverage, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. Last year we weren't competitive in October, so
Mhm.
that's a big improvement. But if you're facing a must-win game in Buffalo in January, your season's probably over.
Yeah, that's why last week was so important, because you win that game, it's like, oh yeah, you could lose this week, no big deal. But now it's like, yeah, you got to win this week and next week and pray. So that makes it a
Yeah,
little
they
bit
have
more
like a one
complicated.
percent chance.
Not
Something like that.
3% chance at
Oh,
this point.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
If they lose this game, it's less than
it's zero. I mean,
0.1%.
it's effectively zero.
Well, because
Technically,
they would have to lose, and then not San Francisco, Philly, and like New Orleans, and who like one other team would have to also lose.
yeah, the Falcons could
Yeah.
theoretically get the 7th seed if like they got one more win and like every other team lost out, basically. So,
Yeah, I think
so
if the Falcons win out, it would be like a 24% chance or
mhm.
still something very low.
Yeah, I think if they win out, either the 49ers would have to lose both their games, or you could have, I think, Philly lose both their games and the Vikings lose one game. Um, so one of those scenarios would have to happen. So, not exactly likely, but
Well, I mean, I think no, I think Atlanta has to win both games, and they have to lose both games, right? Because they have the tiebreaker. So if like Philly or San Fran is up against Atlanta, they own the head-to-head tiebreaker, and they've got a one-game lead. So
Yeah,
I think Atlanta's got to win out, honestly.
yeah, I think so. They have to win it. To like real,
For
unless we're
for us to
talking
feel
about some
good.
sort of like cosmic like chance of some craziness happening, which maybe this would be the year that it happens, but like
not for the Falcons.
Unless Cordero
Yeah.
Patterson gets all 5 Infinity Stones,
yeah,
guys, it's not on the table.
yeah, it's really they have to win out, basically. They have to win out. But if they win out, there's a realistic shot. There's like a 1 in 4 shot that they make it if they win out. But if they don't, they're not gonna make it. Sorry. So they're gonna have to win both these games. But I would also accept a sweep of the Saints. That's the runner up. If we could just sweep the Saints, you get look any year where you can sweep the Saints and get a top 10 pick. That's not the worst year. It could be worse. It could be a lot worse. So get 8 wins, sweep the Saints, and get a top 10 pick. I mean, like, it's hard to think of a better scenario than that and not make the playoffs. Like, obviously making the playoffs would be better, but like, could it possibly be better that you sweep your biggest rival? You still get 8 wins. It's not like you had this miserable season, and you get a top 10 pick because the NFL is really weird this year, and like there's all these teams that are 500. So I mean, look, I think that would be okay. That'd be okay in my book. Could be worse. Could be worse, guys. We could be having our head coach grinded on people at bars in Cleveland. So it could be a lot worse, folks. Is what I'm trying to say. It's an Urban Meyer jab. That's by the way.
No comment here.
Yeah.
I'm mad at you for even putting that anywhere.
Putting that image
anywhere
back
out
on
in the
internet,
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
So. All right. We did have one final donation from George Costanza that we'll get to. He says, Adnan, come on. Buffalo's going down. We're going to cook us up some steak because these Bills are getting roasted. I love your optimism, George. He's here to pump us up when we get depressed. So good on you. He also says, Kyle Hamilton, definitely a first-round talent, but I don't think he's Eric Berry, Troy Polamalu, or Ed Reed. I guess I think those guys are kind of different players than Hamilton. Hamilton's one of those like sort of, Ed Reed, obviously this like incredible free safety, like probably the best of all time. Eric Berry, really great box safety with some just incredible ball hawking skills. Kyle Hamilton's more of just like this hybrid, really unique sort of new age NFL player. That I think is going to become more and more important as teams sort of try to get around the fact that teams are going to play a lot of nickel by going to these heavy sets. You play Kyle Hamilton as your slot guy. Like it's like you're playing base. Like he's that good. Like he can tackle as well as any linebacker. So, I think he's a really forward, modern NFL player. He's the direction the league is going. And he can do anything you want. And I think that really appeals to Dean Pease because that's what he wants to do with his safeties. He wants you to have no idea what those safeties are doing on any given play. And Kyle Hamilton legitimately could do anything. Like that man has lined up at edge for Notre Dame. So I don't think I've ever seen him play defensive tackle, but other than that, he's done everything for that defense. So, I think he's just a unique, special player. But yeah, I don't think anyone's trying to compare him to like Ed Reed or anything like that. That's different players, in my opinion, different style of player. Obviously Ed Reed's probably the best safety of all time, but yes. All right. Well, I think that was the last donation. I think I'm caught up. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we have to save some. I know there's a lot more draft questions in the chat. We got to save some draft takes for the off season because you got a long way to go still. So I appreciate all the draft takes. Put those in the back pocket, and keep those at hand. We will have lots of time to get to those. And I appreciate everyone hanging out with us tonight, giving us some of your holiday time. Before we take off, I want to remind folks to please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Those metrics all help us out. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. And just reminding folks to look forward to our great Senior Bowl content, which is going to be coming at the end of the month. I will, continue to remind you about that until then. But I'm trying to work out some cool stuff to do live from the Senior Bowl, so stay tuned for that. And I need you to, of course, give a follow to our great co-host this evening. First of all, we have Will McFadden at Will McFadden on Twitter. Will, anything you're working on you'd like to plug? He is the host of the Believe Falcons podcast. Great show with Ovi McGilly. So feel free to plug that. Let people know where they can find that and anything else you're working on.
Yeah. So former Falcons fullback Ovi Mihaly is my co-host on the Believe in Falcons podcast. That is BLEAV, and you can get it wherever you get any of your podcasts. I do the Stock Up, Stock Down feature on Mondays, and I'm going to hopefully try to, guys, I need you to hold me to this, write some more stuff kind of once the off season rolls around, some kind of like postseason big picture things I've got rattling around in my brain. But Adnan, I want to ask you here live on air, if the Falcons beat the Bills on Sunday, on the next Falcoholic Live, will you jump through a table live on air?
I think there will be some like
We'll get
spatial
Twizzler to sponsor it. It'll be great.
If we provided the table, and it was like a stunt table, like a table that's designed
made out
to
of
break.
Twizzlers.
Yeah, a table made out of Twizzlers. If that's possible, I would work on that. But
yeah, I'm never against jumping, through a table, of course. I don't know. It would just be some like logistical, like spatial. Like my room isn't very big.
Yeah,
we'll get a small table.
Yeah, I'm always down to jump through a table.
Right, yeah, there you go, Kevin. Back to you.
Okay, thanks for setting that up, Will. Good job. We set that up before the show, and I was just Will was waiting for the perfect time to spring it on him when the peer pressure would be highest. So great job.
It's okay. I won't have to worry about that at all. The Bills,
probably not, but just in case we have it on air now.
Put the Falcons through a table this weekend.
Yep. Go. So there'll be a table arriving at your house, within days of the win. So get ready for that. All right, guys. Also, of course, we have Adnan Ikic. She's at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything you're working on you'd like to plug?
Saturdays, series history and what if we win or lose articles go every Saturday. Mondays is fantasy stud and dud, and go Dogs. Playing against Michigan on Friday in the semifinal.
Yeah. Go Dogs. Go sick them, get them, and get set up for that rematch. Just kidding. It's going to be Cincinnati because look, the AAC has beaten the SEC twice already this bowl season, so we're just setting it up for the ultimate smackdown here.
It's Cincinnati's going to wear all black. They're going to do a blackout against Bama. And,
okay.
Yeah, that just sounds like a terrible idea.
It does. Yeah, I I don't know what there's. I feel like there's not really much they could do. I think they just sort of have to send it. So good luck to Cincinnati though. Yeah.
I don't know who signed off on that.
I don't know, but they do normally wear black. That's like their main color. So, yeah, good for them. I hope that they pull it off. Like that would be fun. That'd be cool. I think everyone would enjoy that, unless you're an Alabama fan, in which case you can deal with it. You've won enough, okay? Like let Cincinnati have a turn. But yeah, guys, I am Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin on the Twitters. I will have stuff coming later this week. Also have stuff coming next week. More draft stuff down the line. Obviously, Senior Bowl coming up. Can't wait to bring you guys all that sweet draft content. I'm going to crank out probably a lot of scouting stuff over this next month while I get ready for the bowl. So until then, guys, we will see you again on Sunday after the game for some post-game coverage. Hopefully celebrating a win and watching, Adnan get sent through a table. But, first the team has to win. So we've got a long way to go. That's a high hill to climb. But, I think if we told the team that you would do that, Adnan, I think that might get it done. If we could somehow backdoor that information to Flowery Branch, that might give them the spark they need to successfully pull off this upset. So.
Hey, anything it takes, to be honest. It'll be very Falcons to pull off this win and then lose next week.
Yeah, that would definitely be exactly what happens. But it would be fun, for that week. It'd be like, oh man, they're gonna do it. Oh no, they lost to Ian Book or something.
Ian fucking Book.
The ultimate penalty. All right, guys. Again, thank you so much. Everything. Wish you guys a fun remainder of your holidays if you're still with family or whatever. Be safe out there. And we will see you on Sunday after the game. Until then, guys, have a great night from all of us here at the Falcoholic Live.